Welcome back to She Knows SEO. I'm your host, Nina Clapperton, and today I'll be speaking with a student of mine, Kat Roberts of Kat is Out of the Office, and that's Kat with a C for anyone who wants to check it out. The link will be in the description. Kat is a student of mine in the SEO roadmap, so we're going to be talking about a lot of different SEO tactics and how Kat has really changed her strategies for her solo female travel site. We also discuss the need to create content clusters and really build topical authority and how that changed the game for Kat's website. So without further ado, let's dive right in and learn all about Kat's amazing blog. Hey everybody, today I'm here with Kat Roberts, who is one of my SEO roadmap students and the founder of Kat is Out of the Office. I always have to remember I always forget it when I type in your blog name and it's unhelpful for me. But this is Kat. Kat is going to be talking to us today about her blogging journey, and I'm going to throw it over to Kat to introduce herself.
All right. Hi. Thanks, Nina. My name is Kat of catisoutoftheoffice.com, and I am a blogger now, but I wasn't always a blogger. I'm pretty new at it, actually. Before that, I was actually in a completely different job, which was a director of HR operations for a hospital in New York. And I did that for several years. I was working in HR for about 12 years in New York. And I always had this dream of traveling, not necessarily blogging. I never really thought about being a blogger, but travel was like my dream. And I finally got to do it after a really hectic 2020. 2020 was not the best time to be working for a hospital in New York City, but it was probably the best part of my career in the sense I was able to help the most people because our staff at the hospital were angels. But after that, after I finally left, kind of mid-pandemic, I really didn't want to work. I didn't want to work. I just wanted to travel. So that's what I did for about a year. And then after about a year of traveling, I was like, I'm gonna run out of money soon. What am I going to do with, to make money in the future? Do I want to go back to the corporate world, or do I want to try something else? And as a full-time traveler, something I did every single day was read travel blogs, because every time I was going somewhere new, I would Google it. And I would, try to look up, how do I get to this place? What is there to do in this location? And all of that. So all I did all day long was really reading travel blogs. And then I actually met a travel blogger, and online. We became online friends. And she told me she was a blogger, and I started asking questions like, is that a real job? Like, obviously I know the importance of blogging as a reader, but do you actually make any money from it? And that's when she said, actually, yes. And then she recommended I follow a couple SEO people, and you were one of them, Nina.
Oh,
So that's how I found you. And you were probably one of the first people I ever heard talk about how much money you made from blogging. Maybe it was out there and I just wasn't following the right people, or maybe it's on the newer side of people being more transparent. I suspect it's that one. But I started following you, and you were right at the point you were still working, and you had just started hitting some big milestones in your blog, and you were really excited about it. And that was the first time where I was like, she's making how much? And what I loved too is you were very transparent about I'm working a full-time job. This is something I'm doing on the side. I've been doing this for years, and I never, made that much money from it and all of this, but you were really figuring it out and how to make it into this full-time business. And then I remember you got to finally quit your job, and it was like, I was like cheering you on on the internet. And so right around that time, I don't remember the exact timeline of when that happened, but I decided, you know what? I have a little bit of savings left. I'm not desperate yet. And now is the time to try something new if I'm going to try it before I have to make a decision on what I'm going to do for work. So I bought the website, set it up, and then did really nothing with it because I was still full-time traveling. And it is so hard to travel and work, I've learned. I think anybody online who tells you they're full-time traveling and full-time working is lying to you. They're maybe traveling a little bit and then working a lot of it. It's a very hard balance to strike, especially when you're new and everything takes you a very long time because you're learning at the same time as you're doing, and then you're redoing things and all that. So I wrote a couple terrible blog posts, had them up. I did get a little bit of traffic. And I bought your course. Actually, I bought the roadmap course back. I remember it was a Black Friday sale. I was sitting in Costa Rica and I was like, now's the time. I'm going to invest in this. But still, I didn't prioritize blogging for several months later, until finally, about 7 months ago, I would say, I made the decision like, okay, I've been traveling for 2 years at that point. Now it's about 2.5 years. Been traveling for 2 years. I'm going to run out of money eventually. I need to start prioritizing blogging. So I started blogging full time and traveling just a little bit. So now I'm staying in places for like 3 months at a time and really working like every single day and occasionally adventuring out somewhere.
I think
that was a very long introduction. I'm sorry.
but I think that's the progression a lot of people go on, especially with travel, especially. I think that's one of the hard parts about our niche is that like the way that we get authority and expertise in it is that we sort of need to be on the go a lot, but it's so hard to balance. Like I started my blog just before I moved to New Zealand, and I spent a month doing like the whole like going to a different hostel every night sort of situation. And I remember one time like frantically running to a Starbucks because like the hostels in New Zealand, at least back then, did not have good Wi-Fi.
I've heard about the Wi-Fi in New Zealand recently.
Yeah, it was awful. I don't know what it is, but it is so, like, even in like major cities, it is so bad. And so I was like running to a Starbucks before they closed because I had set like a self-imposed, like every Monday at this time, it's got to go out or whatever. They weren't even good. It was such a mistake, but it was like stressful to do that. And I think once you have to start treating it like a business, it is so much harder to then need to like prioritize it. I think if you are just blogging, like just to like let your parents know you're alive, that you can do like full-time traveling. But yeah, I don't know anyone who like properly full-time travels and can like really do it unless they have a massive team. And even then, like, I don't know how they handle the team communication because I dropped the ball on that last year.
It's hard. It's so hard. Yeah. And for me as a traveler, it takes me, when I get to a new place, it takes me a couple of days to get into a new routine and to settle in. So if I'm moving every 3 or 4 days, I'm literally just not in the right headspace to do anything productive.
Yeah, and I think writing is one of those things, especially where it is a lot of brain power and creativity. Like I feel like formatting a blog post, you can do that wherever. That's pretty easy, as long as you have Wi-Fi, which is the other half that can be quite challenging. Yeah. But with writing, it is, I don't know, I used to write novels when I was a kid too, and I needed to like have the right headspace to do it. Otherwise, you just couldn't. You just stare at the page and you're like, okay. Yeah. And those were also very bad. They were probably critically bad. Like probably should have been sued for how bad they were.
I have a few of those also.
But I think that's like, it is cool to see the progression with it of people that do kind of want to be bloggers and want to turn it into a business. And it is pretty common for them to find slow periods and kind of find that slow period of time where they can then work on the writing instead. Because you've also been able to grow to like, what was it, like 18,000? I don't remember user sessions, but yeah, you've grown a lot, especially in the 7 months.
I've grown a lot, and I will be honest, the last few weeks I've been a little stagnant, which has been so frustrating because I've been seeing so much growth. But the last couple of days I've started growing again, so I'm so excited. I don't know, everyone must have been on vacation on all my readers. I don't know.
February is like college reading weeks, I think. I don't know.
To be fair, one of my main pillars is about a location that you shouldn't really visit right now. Even in my blog, I say don't visit here right now. Yeah. So I kind of brought it on myself.
That's fair. I mean, like I write about Canada and winter or Canada generally, and I hate winter. So I don't write about Canada and winter. So my winters are all and I'm lucky to be at a point now where I don't have to write about it because I hate it. I'm like, I don't want to ski. I used to go on skiing trips as a child and I would like revolt every time. One time I gave my sister a bloody nose just so I could get like put in like the special snowmobile to get off the mountain faster because I didn't
Oh
want to be.
my gosh. I'd love to meet your sister. I feel like she'd be fun to meet.
She's insane. So that's my little sister who's an architect who builds like
Yeah.
mansions and is way cooler than I am. She is so interesting, but she also bullied me relentlessly. So
Oh no.
I got my comeuppance with a
I was
no
gonna say you owe her a
spirit.
lot.
Yeah, we're friends now, but there was trauma.
I'm an only child, so I can only imagine.
I'm a little bit jealous, but also kind of I like having a sister. It's fun to
Yeah.
surprise them. But also
Yeah.
speaking of being on your own, this is gonna be the worst segue. You solo travel, so that's your area, right?
Yeah, yeah. I focus on well, I've been solo traveling full time for the past almost 3 years, honestly. And that doesn't mean I'm always alone.
Of
I
course.
I meet a lot of people. But yeah, I've been primarily traveling solo for the past almost 3 years, and I'm a little bit different than a lot of the backpackers that you meet abroad, depending on what location you are. A lot of backpackers are like in their 20s, maybe they're taking a gap year between school. They're staying in like $4 hostels and, doing everything as budget as possible. And I think that's amazing. Americans, we don't really do gap years, or I think we're starting to a little bit more now. But like when I found out that a lot of people do this, I was like, that is amazing. I wish I had done that. But I didn't really start traveling until a little bit later. And so now I solo travel and I do backpack. I live out of a backpack, but I have a little bit of money saved up, probably more than your average 18-year-old,
Yeah.
because I got to work for 12 years in New York. So yeah, so I backpack solo, and that's what my blog is mostly about, is some of my favorite destinations that I've been to recently. How can other solo travelers, especially solo female travelers like me, who maybe are, they're on a budget. I'm on a budget. I track everything I spend, and I can't just spend frivolously. But I do have a little bit of a higher budget than maybe like someone in their 20s. So it's kind of about how do you do that? How do you go to these amazing places? How do you maybe save a little money on transportation so that you could spend a little money on a really cool tour or a
Yeah.
really great restaurant or something? So it's my blog kind of points other travelers, and non-solo travelers would get a lot out of the blog too, but I kind of write for people who are doing the same thing I'm doing, which is surprisingly a lot of us. I was shocked when I started traveling and all these people are doing this. I thought I was like, going to be the only one, but it turns out it's really common.
I think until you start traveling, even like, so I did a gap year, but kind of under duress because I applied to 298 jobs and even
Oh
the
my God.
LM turned me down. Medieval literature degree does not get you far.
Oh my God. I wish I'd known you back then. I used to be a healthcare recruiter back in the day. I could have helped you.
I don't think you could have because I think I'm terrible at it. But no, so I did it, and the same thing, like everyone at home was like, oh, I've never heard of someone doing this. Why would
Right.
you do that? And then you go abroad and you find your people. And that's something I love about blogging. Even just meeting other bloggers is like you find your people who aren't, yeah, working at law firms, who aren't doing maybe what was a more traditional path to some extent, because that's kind of what's expected. But I think that that's really cool. And like, obviously with your blog as well, like you have such a clear audience avatar. But is there anything else that was like, especially, I don't know, you found like was kind of the secret sauce for when traffic really started to take off?
Yeah, I think well, it's actually something I learned in the roadmap course. So I was skeptical that it would work at first. But I tried it because I did pay money for someone more experienced to teach me. So I did try it. And that was creating like pillars or topic clusters within those pillars. So what I found because I started from nothing. So my authority with Google was like zero. Google had no idea who I was and why anyone should listen to me. But I found that the more I wrote about one particular topic, in my case, it's usually a destination and not even like a country. Like I've been going even deeper, like writing about a city or writing about an area of the country. And sometimes I'll even write multiple posts about like one tourist hotspot. and how do you get there, and what are the tours you do there, and when's the best time to go there. And I found that if I write a whole group or cluster about the same topic, that it was easier because I only had to really research once about the topic and get all the great information. And then Google started to trust me a little bit more, and that's when I saw my traffic spike, was when I was able to have like these topical clusters.
Which I think is also like it is a trust the process thing, especially because so many of us start writing like to have fun, and it's not that fun to write about.
Yeah,
Like,
some of the keywords are
yeah.
not fun.
I find boring keywords, and then also kind of boring my ADHD a little bit, where it's like, okay, we're gonna keep talking about the same thing, but your hyperfixation's worn off, so the dopamine's gone.
Yeah.
It's very helpful because we have to think more of the user there, but you're not the first person to tell me that they were didn't really want to do that. And I'm like, I didn't either. Like, honestly, when I did it, I thought it was kind of ridiculous. And then it worked. And I was like, damn it. Unfortunately.
Damn it, it worked. And also I find that when I'm doing keyword research, for me anyway, I'm still new to it. Sometimes it's hard to find like that first good keyword on a topic.
Yeah.
But then I found like once I found that one good keyword, all of a sudden I found a second one and a third one and a fourth one, like all related. So sometimes like the keyword research kind of went like that too.
That's such a good point. I don't even think of that often because I think I do it at such like an insane scale now that I often forget, like, I don't know, yeah, finding kind of the first one or needing to be so intentional. I'm at a point now where I'm just like,
you could write about anything.
5,000 keywords, like that's my base. And everyone else is like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, also, that's too much. No, you're so right. Because it is finding that first keyword for the cluster. It's even thinking about the cluster. And then I think a lot of people as well feel like, is it the right cluster? Is this exactly right? Have I gone down far enough? Am I too high up? Or maybe I'm whatever. And I think you get to like kind of decision paralysis or whatever, it's analysis paralysis or whatever at a certain point. But it just comes from doing it a lot of the time. And then I'm sure you found this too, but it's always surprising which one of them like really hits. And you're like, that usually it's the one that you're like, I didn't do as much.
Right. Or like it's a weird, sometimes it's like a weird keyword. And what I've found too, and I'm sure you know this, is like, so I use key search based on your recommendation. Thank you. Thanks for recommending the cheapest of the tools and not the most expensive one. But I use key search, and sometimes key search will say something is like 0 or 10, something really low. But I will say, being a reader of travel blogs or just a traveler in general, like how is no one searching for this? Like, this would be the first thing I searched for if I was doing this. And actually, I have searched for this particular word, and there was nothing available for it. And so some of my best keywords say 0 in key search. And I just know from being a traveler or being in that destination, like there's no way people are not searching for this.
That's why I get really frustrated when people say that there's like a minimum like volume to go for. I always want to say page views, but I know that confuses people because it's volume, it's not page views, search. And it frustrates me because I'm like, first of all, you have to think of the whole cluster together. So like there are things propping it up that don't get a ton of traffic, but you can send traffic there. Or you sometimes like those ones, especially for like She Knows SEO, a lot of those ones are huge hits in my Facebook group. And for Google, it's a lot harder, especially because like in SEO, I'm not a traditional SEO where I'm going to like write 10,000 words defining a term. I'm like, no, here's what it is and here's what you're going to do. And now we're done. Go do it. And I think like, but it's kind of the same idea of like you with your travels, it so well that someone needs this. And I think that's really important, is not to get, it sounds counterintuitive to say, but not to get too stuck in the SEO or too stuck in like rules. And I don't follow rules anyway. That's kind of been my whole life. So I think it's quite fun that with SEO.
I'm a rule follower by nature, Nina.
Yeah, I don't know. I dyed my hair red for the first time when I was like 7, I want to say. So like I've been doing weird stuff my whole life. So I think I'm expected that like Nina cannot, my mom always says, she's like, you can't handle authority very well. And I'm like, that's very fair. I don't like constraints. But I think with SEO, it's kind of the cool thing is like there are constraints to start with, and then you get to play with them a little bit. And yeah, with your content as well, like I read it because you're doing Asia soon, I know, but like I am trying to get back into travel post-pandemic. I definitely found that like I got pretty stuck in North America, and no shade, actually all shade to North America. We're boring. There's not
We're real boring.
fun stuff here.
Some pretty beautiful places, but I'll save
Yeah.
those for when I don't want to fly anymore.
And it's also like they're almost too easy in some ways. Like
Mhm.
there's not that challenge of like the language barriers and all of those questions. Like
Totally.
is there Uber there? I'm like, of course there is. Like, is there
Yeah.
of course there's Uber Eats, and I know every restaurant that's going to be on it. Like, it's all that stuff where I think the fun with travel is the harder stuff, and that's really. I love that you started with reading the bloggers first and then came to being a blogger, because I think that's so important. You understand the importance of the bloggers and like how much they bring to our experience.
Yeah.
I think if you come at it from money, you don't have that like you don't have that same connection to it. And obviously,
Yeah.
we all want to make money. I'm not saying
Yeah.
make money. That'd be very, very
Of
hypocritical.
course. And it's funny. You just made me think of this. Yesterday, I was on the phone. I'm going to Taiwan in a couple weeks with a friend before I get back to Thailand on my own. And we were reading, Taiwan blogs for some of the places we're planning to visit. And my friend, who's a lawyer, not a blogger, knows nothing about blogging. She was getting so frustrated with this blog because we're trying to figure out where we're going in Taiwan. And, it was one of those blogs that was like, well, you could go or you could not go. I didn't like it, but maybe you'll love it. And she was like, can you just tell me if I should go or not? Like, so I think, to your point, being a traveler and having to plan a trip, like you kind of know what people want to know from you. They want you to tell them what to do.
I think that's where like authority and experience, as much as people go like EEAT doesn't exist, I'm like, honestly, who cares if it does or doesn't? First of all, I think it does. I think Google just kind of misrepresents how much links play into it for anyone.
Yeah.
But I also think like it doesn't matter that much, because a lot of it does come from you understanding what you're talking about and how to recommend it properly. And that is something I see with a lot of students who are having really good success. It is like you live and breathe that niche to like a large, not like, okay, not everyone's gonna like live and breathe solo travel 24/7.
Right.
But you know it. Like you are a person that like, even I was at acupuncture the other day, and like the admin assistant and I just started talking about living abroad, and like I literally was 10 minutes late going into the meeting because we were going like so into it of like, here's where you're gonna go, here's how you're gonna do it for like $1,000 a year, and it was amazing. But like I know that thing, so it's if I tried to do that for Taiwan, I'd be like, I know, I've heard it exists.
Right.
All I've got for you.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know in a couple weeks about Taiwan.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear about it. I think it's also a cool place that not a ton of people write about. So I think that's kind of the cool thing with your site too, is that like you've had really good success without becoming a destination niche site, which I think a lot of people with travel think that they have to be. They think that they need to like become a Canada blog or become a Taiwan blog or something. But I think really with that topical authority, you've been able to keep kind of solo travel as the overarching niche and then get to have more fun with it.
Yeah, and I haven't even really written any articles that are like solo travel articles. Maybe one day I will, because I actually think my readers would get some good information out of it. But I haven't even like written any standalone solo travel articles yet. And I'm just writing about my favorite destinations, the things I wish I knew about when I was there. Like today I was writing about Jordan, and this post is going to be so good. I put so much effort into it. I just was messaging with a beekeeper in northern Jordan, because that's one of like the cool things to do there. And I was like, why didn't anyone tell me about this? Like this would have been so cool to know when I was there. I would have had I had an amazing trip, but I would have had an even better trip.
See, that's so cool. And like, I think that's also the fun part, is the research and the connections. And I don't know. I love research. I think it's just so much. I'm
Hmm.
weird for it. I think it's so cool. But yeah, I love that you, and also I didn't know that beekeeping was a thing in Jordan. I mean, that's going to go on my bucket
Me
list.
either.
That sounds so cool. I just learned the other day that you can do like flyover tours of northern Canada to see the narwhal migration in the north. And I was like, I kind of forgot narwhals are real. I kind of
Yeah,
thought they were tourist
unicorns. You
book
got to go see
animals.
them.
Yeah, it's just like interesting things like that. And you can do like a horseback ride safari in Africa. And I'm like, what? Like this world is so cool.
Yeah.
It's
And I
just so
think
much fun.
too, when you're doing it yourself, it kind of starts to become second nature that you forget like how hard it is.
Yes.
Like, how I travel now is way different than how I traveled 2.5 years ago. I used to, I would research constantly. Now I just show up in a place and I say, "Oh, what is there to do here? Why am I here?"
Yeah.
And but you have to kind of keep that in mind that the majority of people reading your website are not full-time travelers. So some of those insights you kind of take for granted that
Yes.
you just know from because of you've done it. Like you want to remember that they don't know, they haven't done it.
That's such a good point. And it's something my friend Jessie Festa, actually, of Jessie on a Journey, brings up often. She does like custom itinerary planning for people often in New York City. And like she's like, okay, New York City, like you just show up and take the subway. But so many people will be like, I just want you to like create subway maps for me of how
Yeah,
to
like
get
I've never taken the subway.
yeah. And like, of course, that would be hugely terrifying. Like, I don't know, my mom would take me on work trips and then just like leave me in the subway when she was not negligent. I definitely was going places to meet people and I had a cell phone, to be clear to anybody. I can't call CPS retroactively. But like, I would just go on the subway by myself and I was totally fine with it. But for other people, that's a freaking nightmare. That would be
And to
fine.
be fair, the New York City subway is very special.
It
We
is.
we
It's
take
all
we it's crazy.
and it is like it is a weird subway system. There's a lot happening there. And yeah, like but it's that kind of a thing where people
Mhm.
definitely forget. I sometimes forget with SEO and stuff when I'll say like, oh, DA, and someone's like, what is that? And I think that it's such a good point to remember the beginnings of it. And also, I think it's a kind of thing for people to remember that there's nothing that's too basic. It's why I often
Mhm.
have a rule in like all my groups. I know people will say like, oh, this is probably a stupid question. This is a dumb question. I'm like, there genuinely isn't one because everyone probably has it or had it at some point. Like,
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
exactly. And I think that if you can remember that with your own sites or even with some questions that like you might think are kind of dumb or you're like, yeah, like of course there's Uber here or of course don't drink the water in Mexico or something. Like someone doesn't know that. And that is really why we're here is to serve the users. And yeah, I think that's also like it helps topic clusters. It helps internal linking a lot because I used to struggle with like linking between things. If you write 20 posts on a place, it gets pretty easy to be like, hey, I talked about that over there. Go there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think my nature or what I thought blogging was in the beginning was like you just are constantly writing these giant like itinerary posts. And I've learned, and I do have a few of those, but not that many, honestly, because for me, those are the hardest ones to write because you have to do the most research. You have to know about every location that you're telling someone to go to. And so like as a newer blogger, I would recommend like not and unless you really want to, or it's a really good keyword, like maybe kind of staying away from those giant, like, here's 2 weeks in this country, here's everything you need to know about this country, and instead looking for keywords that are a little bit more on, on a smaller scale. Because number one, you probably aren't going to rank for those big ones in the beginning anyway, but then they're also the hardest ones and they take the longest to write.
I think that's such a good point. I was actually just about to ask you like your tips for beginner bloggers, and I'm sure you have a couple others, but I think that's a really good one to start with because yeah, people often go with what they see Nomadic Matt or the Blonde Abroad doing, and they forget that they've existed since like 2008 or something, I think. Like they are an established site that's been going for a really, really long time. We're not starting at that same level. Like if I tried to start a bank today, I'm not going to go up to like, this is a bad example because I don't know any US banks. I know Canadian banks. We have limited banks, but yeah, I wouldn't go up to like the Royal Canadian Bank and be like, okay, you're my direct competitor today. Like one day,
Yeah.
hopefully, but not today. So it really is about starting small. And I think like the specifics are also the fun thing, like I always love writing about like a hike I did, like that exact hike, exactly where everything is. find that more fun than I don't love a generic roundup post, but they get traffic, but they're not my
Yeah. Yeah. I guess if you want to know another tip, I just thought of one for a newer blogger. I always thought you had to be like the most amazing writer to be a blogger. And I'm really good at writing work emails, and that's really all I've ever written. I'm not a huge writer. And turns out you just have to be like a clear writer. Like someone just has to be able to understand what you're saying. And most of these people are like me. They're already on their way to a destination. They're on the bus and they just want the answer really fast. So you don't have to worry. I mean, there are some really beautiful writers in blogs, and I really appreciate them, and they make me laugh and they paint a picture. And I do my best to do that a little bit. But at the end of the day, the majority of people just want an answer to a question. They just want you to tell them how to do something or what to do or where to go. So you don't have to be like the most beautiful, amazing writer to be a blogger, is something I've learned.
That's very true. And I think it's something that a lot of people do assume, that they need to be like perfect, everything, the grammar is perfect. When do you ever see a semicolon in a blog post? Like realistically, like you don't need that kind of stuff. It's often, yeah, people just want to chat with a friend that they trust about going to a place. And that's how you convey authority as well. And like make sure that you're writing for your reader. Like I don't want to read an academic article about traveling to London. I'm like, no, where can I get yummy tea? Because that's something I'm supposed to do here. Where can I like go see some good comedy? Like I don't care about the British colonial system. I just want
Right.
this now.
Exactly.
I think that's such a great thing. Like you've learned so much too in 7 months. Like this chat, we've gone over so many things already. So I would love to ask, people do want to know your opinions on the course. I always say pros and cons welcome. I don't have a thick skin. I've got thick enough skin. I always like to know, but people also want to get the idea of someone who's actually in it. So I'd love to hear about your experience in the roadmap and yeah, whatever you want to share with people.
Sure. So I bought Roadmap a while ago, probably about a year ago. I really have no idea. I think about a year ago. And it was probably like almost half the price as it is now. And even that was an investment for me because I hadn't at that point fully committed to the idea of a blog. I didn't know if I would like it. You know, I wasn't sure if that was going to be something I pursued. So I'd say that's a good first step, is really taking a minute to think about, and I think these kinds of conversations, if I had watched more of these, it would have given me more realistic preview of like what a blogger does. And I think that's a great first step, is just really deciding if this is for you. Because it's not just about going on a cool vacation and, you know, writing a quick paper about it. It's a little bit more intensive than that. And then something else that helped me, this might be a little bit of a tangent, and just feeling comfortable about spending the money on it, was I created a tracking system for every expense I was everything I bought for the blog. And then I started freelance writing, and I told myself, like, you have to at least freelance write until you've made up for all the expenses, so that now it's like a neutral expense. And learning the freelance writing is something I learned from the course, and also for you, because you hired me as one of your writers and trained me up when I knew nothing about blogging. So I think that's like a good mindset, is just kind of documenting your expenses so that you feel comfortable, like, okay, I know I just broke even. And even if I get nothing else from the course, like, no harm, no foul, I gave it a shot. So like, that's how I looked at it, because I wasn't fully committed yet at that point. For me, the best part of the course is amazing, Nina. There's nothing I can really say that's bad about the course. It literally tells you step by step how to do everything. And I needed that because I never even heard of WordPress. I asked my little cousin for help. He's a coder, and he's like, just learn how to code. And I was like, that's not helpful. That's not helpful for me. So the course is really great. It goes in, and it progressively gets a little more and more advanced. There's some sections I haven't even done yet. Like there's a whole section on writing for ads, and I hope to need that one day, but I'm not even worrying about that yet because I've got other things I'm focusing on. And then I also go back to it a lot, because sometimes I'll watch a video, but like back in the beginning, I watched a lot of the videos and probably only retained like a small percentage because I didn't know what I was doing yet.
Of
So
course.
sometimes I'll go back and rewatch. I'm like, oh, I get it now. I see what she's saying. But for me, that course isn't even like the best part. It's the access to your Facebook group. That for me is like, honestly, you should probably charge for that, but don't charge me. Um, but it's like the amount of help, like very specific questions I've had answered about my website. Or even like in the beginning, I didn't ask that many questions. I read everyone else's questions because when you're new, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And someone would ask a question and I'd be like, oh crap, I did that. Like, right? Like I did that wrong. Or they would just bring something to my attention that I never even thought about. So for me, the Facebook group is worth it in and of itself. Like I would have paid if I knew how valuable the Facebook group was, I would have paid just for that. And then I actually just with four of the other girls in the group that I met there, we just formed our own little mastermind group.
Yeah, I
And
saw.
we had our first call last week where we went to each other's websites and we like gave criticism and feedback. And now we're gonna like do the same thing with blog posts. We're gonna each read each other's posts. It's been amazing. And even just being able to talk to other humans who know what a blog is, and what goes into it, like for me, that has been amazing.
That was like exactly what I wanted to happen with that group because I found blogging so solitary at the beginning and so frustrating because your wins and losses you had to deal with entirely on your own. And that's so annoying. Like, 'cause it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, my DA grew. And then it's like your family is like,
Like, oh, who cares?
you're bro, like what happens? Like
Yeah.
it really sucked. And so I love having that group. It's a great spot. People think I'm in the free one a lot. I am like trolling that SEO roadmap one all the time. I am obsessed with Facebook. So it's kind of my favorite place to hang out. And like you guys ask the best questions. And I love to because sometimes there's stuff that like I didn't even think of before. And I love problem solving. I love like the challenges that you guys kind of accidentally present me with. Like if someone like does something weird with the tech and I'm like, oh my God, how do we figure that out?
How do we do
Do it.
it?
Let's go for it.
And then I will say, because I'm in a few of the like other free groups on the internet, and I like that this one is more secluded, like more private, because we're not like I know you say there's no stupid questions, but sometimes I see the same question on another group, like and it's a
Yeah.
very basic question over and over and over. But because this is like a smaller group and more private, I feel like and sometimes you'll see a little bit of repetition, which is fine, but it just feels like more personal, more of a community. Like it's
Yeah.
very specific to travel, which is good. Like it's a nice place to be.
And that's such a, yeah, that's a really good point too, because you're right. Like I it's so hard even with a free group to try and like keep everybody on a new question all the time because Facebook search is not great.
It's not
But,
great.
like it is that is kind of the nice thing. It seems like people also like kind of join at certain kind of road marks together, sort of a thing,
Hmm.
and can kind of cluster their questions together, which is really helpful, I think, for a lot of people to, yeah, you kind of like join in, you're like, hey, who's in my spot? And let's
Yeah.
keep moving with them, which is really cool.
And everyone in the group is committed, right? Like they wouldn't have bought the course if they weren't taking it at least a little bit seriously. And like that's motivating to be around other people who are just as committed and motivated as you, rather than just someone who decided to pick up blogging as a hobby and, isn't gonna, which there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. But for me to stay motivated, I want to be surrounded by people who are hustling like me.
Yeah, that's so fair. I think that's a really great little review of it, especially of the Facebook group. And like, I do think finding a community in blogging is kind of worth its weight in gold. And I always tell people, I'm like, I am in so many different messenger chats and WhatsApp groups and things with like my
Mhm.
friends in blogging. And it keeps you going a lot because sometimes you also need people to like chill you out, not just amp you up. And I need that a lot. So it's such a helpful thing. And I love that like I've been able to create something like that to help y'all. And you guys power it really, honestly. Like anyone who's listening, the road mappers are so cool. Like we have such cool people in there.
That's true.
Yeah, who jump in too and give other ideas and answer. Like it's not always just me. I will always chime in, but like
Mhm.
a lot of people know cool stuff that I don't know. And that's the epic part. It's like we're all kind of working together, which I love.
And
And
also even just like proof that it works more than once. Like, like you obviously have had great success with all of these things, but sometimes blogging can be hard. Like, you've been working on something and for no reason that you can tell, it just slows down or it takes, like for me, one of the things I've noticed is it takes weeks, sometimes months before I see traffic on something, and then all of a sudden it explodes for whatever reason. But those few weeks or months when nothing's happening, it can be demotivating. But
100%.
to see other real people they're like, yeah, this worked for me. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. Just be patient.
Yeah. You kind of need people being like, it does, just breathe. It'll take a second. It's coming.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
know.
real.
So true, honestly, because like, yeah, everyone's impatient. I think even the most patient people in blogging, you start to get impatient at a certain point.
Hmm.
Well, this has been amazing, Kat. Thank you so much. I'd love for you to tell people where they can find you and about your special freebie that you're offering.
Great. Well, come to my website. It's catisoutoftheoffice.com. That's cat with a C. And I'm on Instagram at cat is out of the office too, because Instagram shut down my original at cat is out of the office for no reason whatsoever. But you can find me there. And then I have this really cool freebie that is a email course. So it's all about how to solo travel, and it breaks it down into like a handful of emails, and each one is about a different topic of solo travel, like how do you decide where you're going to go? How do you decide what to pack? What are some safety tips? Safety is like a big one that people always are worried about traveling solo, especially as a woman. And I've been to countries that are not known for their safety, although I think a lot of them do get a bad rap and they're safer than we think. So this handful of emails, you by the end of it, you'll at least have a good basis for how to go about solo traveling. Even if you've done it before, I have some things in there that I didn't learn until like 2 years into my solo travels. So I think it's a really good one. And you'll see it when you go to catisoutoftheoffice.com. You'll see how to get it.
And I'm going to link both of those below this video so y'all can find them because I know I don't like typing things in either. So you can go there. But yeah, you'll be able to go check those out. I learned things from the email course, so I recommend it. And I have been solo traveling since like 2018, I think, basically exclusively.
Wow.
So definitely you'll learn some new stuff. And yeah, I just want to thank Kat so much for coming on. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing everything. And everyone watching, I will see you soon. Go check out some other videos on this channel while you wait. Bye.